welcome everybody to Political Unmuted. Just have to ask, have the new flashy graphics all come into play yet, or are we still waiting for them to exhibit themselves, Paul?
I think they're there. I think the audience will tell us whether or not they're there. But yeah, I think they're there.
We warned you it was going to be fantastic. So welcome everybody to the 31st edition of Political Unmuted. I struggled to find anything important about the 31st. No, it's the 32nd this week. I found it. I struggled to get anything about the 31st, but there's loads about the 32nd, which is this week. Just listen to this, the number 32. Okay, it's the sum of the totient function of the first 10 integers. It's the fifth power of 2. It's a Leyland number. It's the 9th happy number. It's the year Jesus was crucified. It's the number of piano sonatas by Beethoven. It's the freezing point of water in Fahrenheit. It's the size of a data bus. It's the number of traditional counties in Ireland. It's the common meter of rock and roll. And a beheaded body can make 32 steps before it dies.
Well done.
So, what an edition! And it's also the edition when we got the flashy graphics. Tell us what you think about them. We can't see them here. We've just been told that we've got to be very, 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 very still. I've not got to go like that. This is a disaster. And if I go like that, we're in real trouble. I've just got to.
You can feel like you're trapped. You that's the way you've got to do it. Like you're trapped in a box. So yeah.
And I mustn't come too close either, because I guess anyway. There we go. So we got all these rules, and welcome to the show. We're having tremendous fun here, and my golly, we've got some stuff to talk to you about. Let's just meet the team. First of all, hi Paul.
Hello.
Congratulations on your wizardry. Hi Stu. It's so lovely to see you. God bless. Samantha, be back to you in a moment for your moment of the week, of course. And Laura, hi. And
hello.
What a heck of a moment of the week you've got to tell us about. But let's start on those now. Laura. Oh, hang on. And Laura, moment of the week.
So my moment of the week this week happened on Friday evening. Most people who watch this will probably already know that the amazing Barbara Clare has stepped down as Sedgefield CLP secretary.
She's not stepped down as my wife, by the way.
No. And obviously she'll be a huge miss. And I was elected to try and fill her shoes. So I'm the new Sedgefield CLP secretary. Which I was really excited about until everybody started going, "Oh, uh-oh, what have I done?"
It'd be brilliant. The first thing Laura did, everybody, was sack me as secretary's helper. So I got the letter today. You have been sacked. Okay. It was fantastic, Laura. Congratulations and well deserved. A major issue about a person's right to be an individual in their own right and judged as an individual, not in the light of the person to whom they are married, by the way.
Yes. I do like to be considered as someone, not just Paul's wife, human. But clearly I've still got work to do on that front.
Such a rabid feminist, Laura, wanting to be a human.
Yeah, someone wasn't best pleased that all the power was in one household because Paul's obviously the chair. I guess that person sees the role of chair and secretary very, very differently to the way we see it. We see it as a facilitator of things, not a power-hungry grab. So anyway,
thank you for stepping up. You're absolutely valued in your own right as a human being, and I'm sure you'll be brilliant. Okay, who am I going to do next? I'm just moving from right on my screen to Sam, moment of the week.
Well, I have not only been inducted, but I have also booked my first shift as a vaccine marshal. Hey, so basically that's a posh way of saying I'm going to a doctor's surgery tomorrow to help people find their way around a one-way system and smile encouragingly at them to try and make them feel. I might, if I'm really lucky, get told to stand out in the car park with a sign that says this is the vaccine centre. So yes, 8 till 1 tomorrow, I'm volunteering in Bishop Auckland at Station View Medical Practice to help them get people vaccinated, which is obviously brilliant.
It's fantastic. Barbara went for her injection on Saturday, and drove to Bishop Auckland, and drove down, and there was a lady who, no doubt you, sort of, but not you, sort of, she came over and she said, "Are you having the injection?" "Yes, we're having the injection." "Right, well, get your mask on and sort of, what do you do to birth and what's the number?" And you got to ask the number, and then sort of she stepped back and she waited till Barbara got out of the car, and then she took her through and guided around the one-way system within, and she was out in 5 minutes.
Yes. That's the plan, is to get people in and out, and that's the job.
Almost 10 million people injected. That's a fifth of the population almost. Fandabby dozy, eh? And all down to people like you. God bless you. And rush those doggies through. Let's get everybody.
Absolutely. Come on, let's go. Like
I'm
Aldi.
which are on here. Talking too much, Sam. Sort of, and I'm just a facilitator, and I'm talking too much. I apologise to everybody. But you see, the thing is that all these variants, they come out because the virus is being transmitted so many times. It's having all these opportunities to vary. And sort of, if we could get down the fact that there were very few transmissions and it was all going sort of, if we just get it going, there wouldn't be as many variants and we'd be a lot safer. So we've got to get everybody done. And if you're listening and you're one of those people who says, "Oh, not right sure about it, I'm going to see how it goes," get yourself done. Save lives. Wash your hands as well. Okay, next person, Stuart. Moment of the week.
Paul Howell gave his bit down at the Houses of Commons, virtually, I understand, and he enlightened us with his wisdom, speaking about his real-world perspective on cladding, Grenfell-style cladding, and the issues around it. He was actually supportive of tighter restrictions, to make everything safer. He was very supportive of what I think is a very cut and dry situation. And when the time came to vote, he abstained. So he was completely in support of the vote and he abstained, just like every, Tory MP has abstained on an opposition motion since forever, basically now, isn't it?
Yes, well, it's certainly in living memory. Sort of, they don't seem to get that what you say with your lips is meaningless unless you do it.
Yeah. It's absolutely worthless, isn't it? If you just say these things and then just don't back it up. It's considering people died, this is a national tragedy, Grenfell. To be able to say these things and then do naught about it, that's just a bit of a betrayal to those people.
Yes, and those poor people caught in that situation where they're being asked for tens of thousands of pounds they don't have and they can't afford to sometimes more than they paid for the flat to change the cladding. And it all boils down basically to a developer's cheat. I'd be furious, mate. But there we go. Anyway, thank you for drawing attention to that. I think it's somehow insidious to become always watching what your MP's up to, but he sought that role, and I think that it's good that people are watching what he's doing and how he's doing it, holding him to account. That's what we have the right to do. Thank you so much for that. And finally, Paul, moment of the week for you.
So my moment of the week is the Political Education Project, which launched yesterday. This is a really, really good scheme, and it aims to get people who aren't necessarily educated in the world of politics into political education in a really accessible way. The people who are running it are really, really lovely. We've got one of them, Paul O'Connell, is coming on the show on Saturday night on Socialist Think Tank. So that's a really big thing for us. And also we are actually contributing to that, because what we noticed is there are these big passages of reading to do, and a lot of the words in there are actually quite hard to understand, to comprehend. Like, you've got to go and do your research on them anyway. So we decided after the papers came out to run it as a podcast. We asked permission and said, can we read these as a podcast to help support people who maybe they might be dyslexic, they might just not have time to read, they might have struggled with all the words, they might have just been put off by the language of it all. So I spent 4 hours reading this thing, trying to perfect my audiobook voice. So one of those has been released. It's a James Connolly speech, and the other is a really long passage. It's going to be a couple of hours, I think, but it's a Hal Draper. So hopefully people who are involved with that and are doing that will get the opportunity to access that course in an easier format, or even if those people who are just commuting and want to hear it, or people who want to read along, or people who want to pause it and go and find out what these certain things mean. But I have to apologise because some of my pronunciation must have been really, really embarrassing. So
and apparently you have a very sonorous and attractive voice.
Apparently it's a like very much like Ron Burgundy. It's soothing baritone. So yeah.
Not Terry Wogan.
Yeah, it could be Wogany, yeah. So with the Irish side in me and stuff, maybe it's more Wogan than Burgundy. But I don't think either of them are particularly cool. So never mind.
Do you not? I think how much money Wogan made? Yeah. If your teaching career ever goes upside down, there's your new form in life, reading out audio books. God bless you all. Thank you for your moments of the week. So I've turned the show on its head today. We're going to start with the other stories first and come to the big story last. So now it's time for... We get more like Wayne's World every week. Here we go. I'm going to start with Samantha, because we've been talking about Paul Howell a little and sort of being critical of him. But in fact, you're quite you've got something quite positive to say about him. But we'll have a chat about it. These, of course, listener, these are questions you've supplied. I've stopped making up the questions. I just ask you what you want to talk about. And this one was, should other MPs follow Paul Howell's example and avoid travel to Parliament during the pandemic? So good things about Paul Howell, Sam? Is that the case?
Well, there's one. No, I don't. I get on quite well with Paul. Well, actually, right up until the point where he became an MP, like that point during the count when his votes got counted, suddenly he got a less nice to me. But anyway, I met him a few weeks later and it was fine. But so I don't have a huge lot against Paul Howell. Long-time listeners will know that I used to be on John's radio show with Paul Howell quite regularly when he was just a councillor. Anyway, the point is, sometimes you've got to give credit where credit's due. And the fact is, Paul Howell has decided not to travel down to London while there is a pandemic, which you think, well, maybe that's like basic, but a lot of other MPs are still making that journey. And my MP, Deanna, is still making that journey to physically present in the House of Commons. And I do not think it is necessary travel, because they've got it all hooked up for video links. You can have your Zoom into Parliament to do your speech and do your thing. You can vote remotely. So I don't see how you make the case that it's it's essential travel to go down to London, a 300-mile journey, to be in Parliament, even if it is your place of work. Lots of people are working from home at the moment. But also, what Stephen says, we're 10 months into the pandemic. It's a bit late now. It's never too late. If your house is on fire, to call the fire brigade, right? It's always worth slowing things down a little bit. At the end of the day, these MPs are coming into contact with lots of people who are doing necessary work, manning the trains, keeping like transport going. So, you know, they're putting other people in a harmful situation as well. So, but we've got to take a step back and say the government should have said right from the start, we don't need MPs in Parliament. And the reason the government has kept MPs in Parliament is because it's Jacob Rees-Mogg who's got the decision, and he likes the pomp and ceremony of it, and he thinks it's barbaric to think of MPs working from home. I think we need to normalise MPs working from home. MPs working from home long term after the pandemic opens up the job of MP to lots of people who are maybe disabled or come from poorer backgrounds, who might not be able to fund. You do get paid, obviously, and you do get expenses, obviously, but those don't come like ahead of time. You've got to fund yourself first and claim those things back afterwards, you know, so it's very expensive to start being an MP. So we would be opening that door to people who are from less affluent backgrounds, and I think that's a really good thing.
Thank you. Laura, do you agree with Sam that it's brownie points to Paul Howell and who to Henna? Or do you think do you stand with the sisters and decide that, you know, we've got to go down, we've been elected to Parliament, and that's where I'm bloody well going to go?
Well, no, I think, yeah, credit where credit's due. We shouldn't be there, but it doesn't really mean very much when they still vote for schools to go back, and they have the choice of they extended their leave so they didn't have to go back in time. It's all, to use one of his favorite words, just a bit disingenuous. But absolutely, I don't think the MPs should be in, but I also think that schools should be closed. So that is a much bigger conversation, but essentially, yes, I agree with what Samantha's saying. So
basically, you don't judge an MP on whether he's there or not, you judge an MP on how he votes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Very neat. Stuart, sort of, he's your MP. Are you pleased with your MP? Pat on the back time?
Pat on the back? I thought that, like, not going to work if you could work from home was the minimum of what you're supposed to do. You know, millions of people are actually doing this and they don't get a pat on the back. So well done, Paul, for doing exactly what everybody else told to do.
In fact, for doing what he's told everybody else they've got to do. So maybe you're just expressing surprise that here we have a Tory doing what they've told everybody else to do, and sort of one rule for all of us. I mean, it's a remarkable and surprising thing. Sort of how I'm being very naughty. Paul Daly, sort of if you were an MP. Which is sort of the desire of most of the Labour Party in Setchfield CLP. If you were an MP, would you be going down, yes or no?
No, I wouldn't be going down. I don't think it's worth either going to London and maybe picking up COVID there and then bringing it back to the northeast. I don't think it's worth going from the northeast and taking maybe a new strain down to London. If it were up to me and I were an MP, that would probably be the only choice I would have, just to look after myself, I suppose, because it really does take a massive effort in government of people who know what they're doing in order to have some sort of strategy that would have stopped this whole mess. So everything they do, it's all about the individual, isn't it? It's all about a Tory kind of, you know, everyone's an individual, everyone chooses their own best path, and everyone's responsible for themselves. There's collective responsibility. It's all collective responsibility, but they're absolutely terrified of the idea of anyone getting the idea that you know, we can collectivize. We do have this collective responsibility for each other, and I think it's all related to that. It's this attitude where like, oh well, he's all right because he didn't go down to Parliament. But
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. So generally, Paul Howell, we're pleased that you're not going down, but maybe you can just think about some of the things that you're voting for, and the things you're doing. Your government needs to pick up on the things that matter. Okay, now one of the joys, people, question 2, that one of the joys of asking you about the questions is that in the past I've known all the answers because I've chosen questions that I knew something about because it's interested me. And one of the joys of asking you is there are some things that I just think, I don't know anything about that. So I'm going to learn along with most of the listeners today. And I'm going to go to Laura, and I'm going to ask her to talk about, it's really topic 2 rather than question 2, the amount of money the government is taking out of the miners' pension fund. Now, I don't know anything about this. Laura, can you tell us what on earth it's talking about and sort of what the issue is?
I mean, I can try. I'm pretty confident. I know a bit about it, so probably more than you. But I'm sure we've got listeners and viewers who know a great deal more about this than I do. So in a roundabout way, the British Coal Board was privatised in '94. So at the time, they had to renegotiate pensions. And it was decided that any surplus income that they got from those pensions would be split 50-50 between the people who had the pensions and the Treasury. Since then, I think they've made like a ton of money. I'm talking millions, and it hasn't gone back into the pension pot. And I think in the last 5 years, it's something like 5 million's been taken out of it. So their mine workers and their widows or what have you, the families aren't getting anything. And I think in 2018 the pensions had gone down so low that they were getting something like £80 a week, £84 or something, and since then even more has been taken out of the pot. So I know that there's been a letter written by a team of MPs, I think 50 MPs, to the Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Committee, to ask them to sort of just have another look at it and see if they think it's correct and if it really should be reviewed again. So they sent that quite a while ago, and then Graham Morris, who's really heavily involved, he's for people who don't know, I can't imagine anyone who doesn't know Graham, but he's the MP for Easington up here. He's fantastic. He's been behind this since day one. He's sort of been speaking on it in Parliament as well, and this letter's gone to that committee, and they've said they are going to have a look at it and have a look at renegotiating terms. Boris Johnson has also said oh my God, I want to say last year, but it was 2019. See, last year doesn't count because nobody did anything. He said that no miner would be out of pocket. So he hasn't fulfilled that pledge. He hasn't stuck to it as yet, but I think the most recent letter was sort of had a little dig at that, just saying they look forward to no miner being out of pocket, which I thought was a nice touch to the letter. But it is being looked at again, and there's plenty of people behind this issue, and there's plenty of sort of miners' families and ex-miners who are pushing this issue, because effectively the Treasury has taken money from them that belongs to them, as I understand it.
I mean, when you're talking about people of that age, you're talking about many of them dying before they get justice if you're not careful.
Well, yes, and that is the problem, and that's why I think Boris is probably going to be able to get away with what he said, because he said no mine worker will be out of pocket by the time if he sort of puts a hold on this being looked at again and renegotiated. By the time it gets done, no mine worker will be alive to be out of pocket. It'll be their families that are out of pocket.
Many of them are deeply ill. Many of them have many lung diseases and other problems as well, directly related to the work they did.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And that's the illnesses, pneumoconiosis, and Heather Wood tells me all about the just terrible diseases you get from mine. And these people have worked solidly in a really dangerous environment that deserve their pension. They shouldn't have stuff taken off them. So yeah, I think it does need to be relooked at.
Thank you. Anybody on the team, have you got a comment to make? Paul, Stuart, Sam? Stuart, first.
Aren't we also scared that the government's going to switch the miners' pension scheme from the RPI inflation index to the CPI inflation index as well, which is like a sneaky cut, so that like over a 10-year period, that difference over those two inflation indexes works out with like 8% or something, which is like a huge cut.
It is, yes. The sort of CPI's consumer price index, RTI is the retail price index, and the CPI is always lower than the RPI. Paul, you indicated you want to speak.
Yeah, I think that we've got this situation now where we've got COVID, and a lot of the time there's this idea that, you know, these people with underlying health conditions are, you know, somewhat expendable, you know, or there's this like big right-wing narrative at the moment where, well, there's only X number of people who've died who didn't have underlying health conditions. Look at all the mine workers who have underlying health conditions, you know, COPD and asthma, and, you know, these other diseases related to working in mines that mean that, you know, working class people, they work harder than a lot of people who, you know, I think this is a big retirement age thing as well, where like the Tories keep on pushing retirement age up and up and up and up. It's like I could probably sit in a boardroom when I was 90 and tell people what to do, but I couldn't go down a mine. Like, not that we can go down mines anymore, but I couldn't lay bricks, or I couldn't be a teacher, or I couldn't do any of these things that people do. And it's this kind of view of the world. Yeah, they've got an underlying health condition that they got from their job. They're not getting compensated for it. They're having the pension taken from them. And it just seems to be lose-lose for people if you work hard.
There's a bit in the Bible that I always quote, which is, those who have shall more be given, and those who have not, even what they have shall be taken away. And that's just how it is with the Tory government. Sam, last word on this from you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading around more and falling down the rabbit hole myself and seeing people saying that, you know, they've only on £80 a week pension. There's stories about widows on pensions as little as £8.50 a week, and it's just heartbreaking, isn't it? You know, these are skilled people who worked hard for the benefit of the country, mind, not for their personal advancement, not for their personal profit building, and they've been messed around. There's a story I've just seen there saying the total amount that's been gained from this pension fund by the government is more than £3 billion. Right? There is no justification. I don't care, right? If I made an agreement with somebody and then a few weeks later it turned out that actually the agreement was unfair and they are now impoverished by the agreement, I would revisit the agreement, because I'm a caring human being who appreciates other people's suffering. I just can't think of a justification for the government taking £3 billion from a collective number of people who are on pensions of £80 a week, pensions of £80 a month. It's ridiculous.
I think it's almost 5 billion now. I think,
Gosh.
yeah, it's gone up.
So much
It's
money.
a case, Laura, of the fact that sort of we don't want nationalisation when sort of the industry is running, and sort of we want to privatise it. But when it comes to payments of pensions, we want to go back to the time when it was a government thing and it wasn't privatised at all, and sort of we want control of it. Is there a hypocrisy there in the government's position, or have I got that completely wrong?
Absolutely. I mean, it's greed, isn't it? I think they only want the stuff that's doing well so they can make money, and if it's doing badly, the public will bail it out. It's a tale as old as time in this country, as far as I'm concerned by now. I fully expect them to do the same if they are allowed to take over the NHS completely. And don't forget that the vast majority of it is now privatised. Once they start to descend that into complete anarchy and a complete mess that can't function, they'll give us it back. So, yeah, that's.
Can I just ask you one question before we close, Laura? If somebody was outraged by what they've heard and wanted to get involved, wanted to make their voice heard on this, what would you advise them to do?
So there's a lot of information online about it, but it depends where you're from. I'd really consider, if I was wanting to get involved, getting in touch with Graham Morris or his office, because they've done some really good work on this. And as I say, Graham's sort of leading the way for us up here on that, and just see if they can sort of sign some petitions or get involved in the letters that they're writing, and see what sort of protests are being organised. Sadly, at the minute, there's not a lot we can do, but there are petitions out there, and I've signed one myself earlier on, so get that signed and get it brought
Thank
to
you
the
very much. Can you put
soon.
the link to that petition onto the comments?
Yes.
And Graham Morris, thank you very much indeed. God bless you. Congratulations. Thank you very much. We are on time for the first time for a long, long time. Here is another thing. I don't have a clue how it works. Paul Daly, and here's your question, and everybody will be interested to hear how this works. Robin Hood Reddit group beats the rigged system after a hedge fund tries to profit from the struggles of the business Gamestop. What on earth is that gobbledygook about? Paul, explain.
So this is this kind of really wonderful exposition of what happens in financial circles. So what happens is, and I don't think people realise this, I think people think that people invest in good companies, and if they do well, then, you know, they make a profit and it's risky, and if they do badly, then they might lose a little bit of money, and that's how you lose things on the stock market. But it's actually much, much, much more complicated than that, with the increased financialisation of money itself. So people making money because they've got money, and gambling on money lent to money, and it's also like it's like an inception like feeling where you're just going down this rabbit hole, and you know. So anyway, what happens is you can do something called shorting against a company. And shorting against a company is, if you think a company is going to do badly, then what you can do is you can say, I will borrow some shares from that company, and I will sell them on at the price they are worth now. And I know that what they'll do is they will fall in value, but that person will still owe me the money. So it's also like becoming a middle person in someone losing some money. And we saw that this caused the world financial crash, shorting, because what happened is a group of people started to realise that there were these really, really bad mortgages. So people started shorting against mortgages, which had never been done before. They were meant to be this safe investment, and it didn't turn out to be such a safe investment after all, because they were bundling up really bad loans. Well, anyway, what's happened is this group of people on Reddit got together and said, right, they're shorting against this company GameStop. Now, GameStop is a games company that doesn't retail online. So during the COVID crisis, they're doing badly, and someone said, I'm going to make money out of their misfortune, and started shorting against them. But the way the stock exchange works is, if you buy a lot of shares in something, the share value goes up. So this group of people said, we're going to buy all these shares in this company. So this company's share price went through the roof, and this hedge fund ended up with these having borrowed lots of money, lots of shares, and they had to pay them back at the price they were now. So they massively inflated the price of them, and then they had to pay for that, which bankrupted a hedge fund. And then they went, oh no, you can't do that. It's not fair. You've used this rigged system against us. The system's meant to be rigged in our favour. So like they're crying foul. And I think knowledge of what goes on would appall most people, like the way that money is used, the way that like failure is used, and the idea of so Jacob Rees-Mogg's dad was a disaster capitalist. He advocated shorting against lots of things. Jacob Rees-Mogg shorted against the British pound, for example. And then do something that causes the share value to drop so that you make money. And this is the system, and a lot of people thought this was what was happening in Brexit as well. They thought they were trying to short the British pound for a short-term gain, short-term financial gain. So,
thank you. I mean, Elon Musk, I understand, was one of the ringleaders bringing down the hedge fund. Sort of which you have some money to be able to buy lots and lots of shares, I suppose. Stuart, any comments?
That was fun, wasn't it? Seeing that, the mystery of it all come crashing down. The wizard is exposed, and it was a quick turnaround on them shutting down, the trading capacity for regular people. What was it? The two major sites. What is it? Trading 212 over here and another one in America. Our right to be in this free market taken away.
To stop us bringing down the hedge funds, are you saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Who would have thought that the revolution would have consisted in buying shares? I mean, don't you find it a bit alarming? Sam, have you got any comments?
I'm just like, even then, Paul's explaining it so well, and I'm just physically incapable of concentrating on the words, but it's great. Well done. I have no idea what that
At our level, Sam.
Watch that film. Laura's put a film on. I'll watch that.
Yes, do that.
Laura, very briefly, a last word before we move to our fourth topic.
If anybody is feeling like Samantha and myself, watch The Big Short. It's about the financial crash, and it is explained. It's funny because the film's like really difficult to follow, but then they stop it and they have a famous person explain it to you in really simple ways. It's so good. Get it watched. It's absolutely devastating. The anger, if you're not really annoyed at the end, you haven't watched it properly. But also another thing I want to point out is the same week we watched The Big Short, we watched Fahrenheit 11/9, which was sort of another devastating film because it was a true story about rich people getting richer. And at the end of that, the fella in it, I forget his name now, Paul and though, he started buying up shorts in water. And they just left it at that. And I was like, oh God, what's going to happen? So people are buying up stocks of water and shorts of water, I think, because they're going to sort of, I don't know, nationalize it, make it too expensive, and then the whole world will fail and then they'll get rich. So, yeah.
That's the thing we don't want them to buy up with shares. Thank you very much, everybody. It's sort of rather strange that we're sort of no comments at all about the evil of a world dominated by finances. You all did very well there, sticking to topic. And last of all, Stuart, just we are a couple of minutes behind, but sort of your topic of the night was should the right to food be enshrined into law? Before you say yes or no, tell us a little bit about the background to this, please.
The background, you mean that the hundreds of years struggle to make sure people have a right to survive?
Yes, you can start there if you want.
Yeah, well, I think the obvious answer is it should be, of course, enshrined into law. It isn't currently, is it? There's very little in the way of protections on something as basic as having access to food, and not even good quality food or nutritious food, just food. So, and obviously, if you disagree that people deserve the right to food, you are the bad guy in a Dickens novel. You're the type of person Roald Dahl made the bad guy if you don't think people deserve food. So yeah, and for me, it shouldn't just be food. It should be nutritious food, accessible food, you know. And it's not a contentious topic, is it? Really, in the real world, I don't know how politicians make this an issue that gets debated round. You know, there's very little that you really need enshrined into law as basic as food. Maybe energy security, housing security, food security. That's the basics of your
We're back to Beveridge and his 5 giants, really. If truth be told, you have a right to live. Sam, have you any comments about this? The right to food.
Yeah, I mean, I work for the co-op. I am not speaking in my capacity as an employee of the co-op, but one of the things that we talk about is part of like the ethos of the company is fair access to food. Because actually, when you talk about it in those terms, fair access to food is people having access to food, isn't it? Like, there's no way you can look at somebody and go, you don't deserve access to food, you know. And the fact is 25% of all of the food produced goes in the bin, goes in landfill, you know, for lots of ridiculous reasons, like your eggs speckled in all the wrong ways, or your bananas too straight. You know, we got a delivery from Tesco the other day. There were 2 cucumbers. If you send one back, is it going to go in the bin because it's contaminated, or is it going to go back on the shelf? You just don't. Those are the types of massive food waste we've got in this society. So I know in Shildon, we've got Shildon Alive, who run a fantastic food waste project, and they literally, you know, they get so much of it. There is never a shortage of stock of food waste. There is always more waste that can be given to people, and it should be given to people because it's much better off in bellies than in bins.
We've got a company in Newton Aycliffe that makes gas out of the food that people throw away. Well, it sort of powers hundreds of homes with biogas, just out of waste food. And there's people starving to death. I mean, it's just an arse-up world we live in. Laura, should the right to food be enshrined in law? What would the benefits of be if we were to? Is there any point? What's the point?
Well, I have to say it shouldn't have to be, but I think this lockdown and even previous to that, we've got such a rich economy. We shouldn't be living in a country where children are going hungry, and they have been for years. You know, I know plenty of teachers who've seen kids picking food out of bins just to feed themselves. You know, it's pathetic. Of course, people should have a right to food. There's actually a consortium called Just Fair they've been funded by loads and loads of different companies, and they sort of monitor and investigate human rights, and it's human rights contained in the, I want to say, International Covenant of Economic and Social and Cultural Rights. I think that's right. Somebody please correct us if I'm wrong. But they're talking about having the right to food, but not only that, housing, education, social security, all things that should be a human right. And I know there'll be people out there who say, well, you should get a job then, feed your kids, stop buying cigarettes, stop going to brothels and all of that. But no, that's not how this works. If somebody's starving, we feed them. That is a society I want to be living in. And children are starving, not just children, obviously. But if we've reached this point in a country like this, then yes, absolutely, it should be law.
The thing that I always say on this kind of thing is that about the right. When you talk about the right to food or the right not to be sort of reduced to poverty and things like that, you always get somebody who turns up and says, well, the people down our street, they get all their money and they let off fireworks on bonfire night and sort of, so, you know, they got people giving back their free food and things like this. And it's like sort of the right not to be tortured. I mean, there are some people who like being tortured, and there are other people who torture people. But that doesn't take away my right not to be tortured. And the fact that some people abuse the right to food doesn't take away my right as a citizen living in this country to be adequately fed. I think it needs to be added to our list of human rights. And I think it's amazing that it should ever be questioned. They're trying to get it into this kind of food report, aren't they? So that the people who are studying food actually put it as a right into the recommendations of the report. They're trying to persuade them to do it. Paul, last word on this, and you've got literally 2 minutes. I'm going to stop you talking.
Okay, so I'm going to go down a different route. I'm going to go down an anthropological route, and do humans have any rights whatsoever? Because a lot of the time you hear the arguments against rights are, well, if these people, they wouldn't survive in the wild, if they wouldn't be clever enough to do this and that, and they're wasting food, and it's quite like a silly argument. We don't have any kind of biological rights. Biologically, we don't have any rights. Neither do animals or anything like that. But we choose to have them. We choose what's right. We choose to have morals, and we choose to have a certain set of values, and that's what we call our rights. And if people are saying, people shouldn't have the right to food, they're just being indecent, really. I think people should have the right to food, given that we throw so much away. I think that's quite obvious, and I think most decent people would say that. Biologically, you could argue, we should be out foraging or hunter-gathering or something like that. Biologically, that's where we are. But we've evolved beyond that. We haven't evolved physically beyond that, but we've kind of, through our myths and through our legends and through our collective consciousness, we've decided we're going to be better than that. So are we going to be better than that? Or should we just go back to hunter-gatherer times? Maybe we'd be happier if we did. I don't know. But those people who argue against human rights, that's basically the argument they're making.
Just to finish off on this, I got 2 things to say. The first thing, you're absolutely damn right. What happened was that sort of in the past, big, strong people took stuff, and then they made laws to stop bigger, stronger people taking it off them. That's what a law is. It's so I can keep what I've got without having to be sort of fight for it. And but if we're going to have laws which protect property, then those laws have to enshrine rights of people as well. And we can't have a situation where laws protect one set of people but don't protect the other. And so the other thing I've got to say, and this is for listeners, when this was being debated in Liverpool Council, the assistant mayor released the information that people on minimum wage, if they were going to eat at the standard recommended by the government for healthy eating, 70% of their wage would go on food. And there you expose the hypocrisy of the system. Right, and of course now what we're moving is to On Time.
Now it's time for the big story.
And the big story, thank you to the person who asked this. Should local candidates think about a 5-point pledge going into the local elections? And what would you want the first 2 of those pledges to be? So I've just got a short time to go to each of my supreme team and sort of what 2 pledges. Stuart, you're a candidate. What are your 2 pledges, your 2 prime pledges going to be to your electors as you try and get them to vote for you?
I would imagine that the fly tipping situation that's going on, county-wide, needs addressing in a different way. I've got a background in waste disposal. I believe that we can build proper relationships with licensed waste removal people. We need to tackle stuff quicker. We just need a new way of doing things. If I could go out and secure funding and a means of being able to tackle things quicker, that's what I'd do. I think is my number 1 pledge.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, as a councillor, if you let it lie, it grows, and it fosters a sense of couldn't give a damn about the environment in the local residents. Second pledge.
Well, I've got a background in litter picking. I'm really quite interested in improving the environment around us. I think it's a really socially valuable thing to do. I would really love to foster job creation in that area, because I think we depend too much on volunteering to keep our world nice and safe and secure for everyone, on like these really small things like litter picking, making sure there's no glass around the kids' parks. I think we can build teams that, invest in our communities and make local jobs.
Basically, two things to enhance the environment in which people are living. And I think that the Clean and Green team would welcome you onto the council with open arms, because we don't have enough people picking the litter and looking after that side of things. Thank you, candidate. Sam, you're a candidate in the local elections. What will your two main pledges be? You're muted, Sam.
I get the prize for the person who was muted. Yeah, I similar to what Stuart was talking about there, but because one of the problems I've had with fly tipping is you report it to the council, and I always have to report things online to the council. I'm reporting things at like midnight and in between sorting out kids' lunches. I can't phone. So I report things and then they don't get dealt with and I get no feedback. And I think that's a huge problem. And I think members of the public are finding this a huge problem as well. If there's a reason you can't move it, and there's a lot of land in Shildon owned by Network Rail, and we can't move things off their land. And I understand that, but there's so much of it, I don't know where it is. So I need the council to come back to me, and the members of the public need the council to come back to them to tell them why they can't do the thing they've asked them to do. And there's a big gap there. And that's one of the things that I'd be looking to
2
fix
seconds
on it.
before you move on. Thank you. That's a brilliant one. I get cross about that as well. If you report something as an individual online, make sure you get the case number. And if they don't get back to you, go to your county councillor and get them to play hell. We must feed back. That is a brilliant pledge. I will get them to feed back. And you've got the means as a councillor to get stroppy enough about it to make sure that they change the systems to do that. Brilliant. Second pledge.
Second pledge is actually just holding regular surgeries. It's something that we've fallen out of the habit of doing in Shildon, and we're starting with the town council. I think having online things like Zoom as an opportunity to use is a good thing. But literally, yes, booking in surgeries, finding somewhere, COVID willing, that I can go and sit for half an hour a month to actually talk to people. I just think people feel like they're not being listened to, and the only way to fix that is to actually listen to them.
I mean, I don't like surgeries. I think they're a waste of time. It's the same 3 or 4 people who turn up. You sit for an hour in an empty hall and nobody bothers to come. I've found getting involved in social media exposes me to the full wrath of the public a lot more than the surgeries ever did. I mean, what you're talking about is accessibility. Or do you believe in the surgery as per se as a way forward?
I mean, you know me. I am social media. I bleed social media. So for me to say be visible on social media wouldn't really be a pledge. It would be a description of what I already do. So I just think the argument is that I am too accessible on social media, which makes me inaccessible to people who are not on social media, a certain age demographic. But I agree with what you say, because I have held surgeries before where no one's come. And you're just like, oh, this is frustrating. But I'll find other things to do. I'll take my knitting with me.
Paul and Laura have talked about, in our campaign, setting up Labour Listens sessions of some kind, whereby we just sit there and people come along and ask us difficult questions. And we see and we answer if we can, and we go and find out if we can't. It's sort of brilliant point. Thank you. Paul, you're not standing to be a county councillor. What would you wish your candidate's top 2 pledges to be?
Well, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit with the listening thing. I'm a fan of.
No.
It's all right.
Big mouth.
But
Talk about it as though I hadn't
But
mentioned it.
I'm for bottom. I'm from bottom up organising. I'm from bottom up for bottom up socialism. I don't believe you can do top down socialism. I believe you can't just go in and tell you what you need. You need this. The first thing you need to do is ask people what they need. Now, like, that is my sincere belief. People will tell you what you want. You might have an idea about the solution or something. You might help them solve their problems, but the idea of just deciding what people might want is a really challenging one for me, and I think people are sick to death of it, to be honest. That's what, when I speak to people, they're sick to death of being told, and they've been told again and again, and that seems to be where the Labour Party is heading as far as I'm concerned at the moment. We're just going to tell people what they need to hear in that, like, kind of Fabian style. The other thing that I would do, so as well as
then, Paul, because I was going to have my 2, and the first one, and you've stolen my thunder. So the first one is what happens in the county council. We have such clever officers and such motivated and clever councillors in charge, and they see a need and they go away and they talk very, very clever with all this knowledge and money and ideas, and they come up with a strategy, and then they get the strategy so it's absolutely watertight, and then they put it out for consultation, and everybody says, I don't like that, and I don't like that. What's this? Oh, for goodness sake, this is stupid. And they listen. They say, well, we've listened to you, and we're going to ignore everything you say because we are convinced that this is the right way to do it. And then they get terribly hurt when, in fact, what is probably the best plan of all anyway, but nevertheless. And my big deal with them is we need to start listening at the beginning and find out what people think about the problems, and be open about the fact that we have a problem here. What do you reckon about this problem? And then take those ideas and build them into the plans. That sort of the public need involving right the way through the creation of the strategy in a much more proactive way. We haven't got that right. That would be my number 1 pledge. What was that? What was your number 2 pledge going to be?
Number 2 was very similar. It's participatory budgeting. There are really good reasons to do this, particularly like Durham County Council. If they've been doing it properly for years, I know Simon Hennig tried to do it a few years back. If they'd have been doing it properly, then imagine having a meeting where you're doing some participatory budgeting and everyone's saying, right, okay, and this means what you go is you say, right, to the community, what shall we spend our money on? And you go along, you have a meeting, you decide on your priorities and maybe have a vote on it and allow people to participate and decide on what the priorities for their ward, for their village, for their town, whatever it is, they can decide on those things. Imagine in 2010, if this was set up properly, imagine the uproar when all those community groups come in and they say, right, what we'd like to spend our budget on, sorry, the budget's gone. It's all been spent. The Tories have cut the budget. They would understand what austerity did to our communities, but people don't. We have been sold this ridiculous bluff, and it's because we haven't been open and honest about what it is. We coddled people. We said, actually, you know, as Labour in Durham County Council, we're going to protect you from the worst excesses of this austerity. We're going to protect people from that. And in protecting people from that, without telling them about it, people think that it's all come from Durham County Council. If you had participatory budgeting way back, then people would have gone, well, where's the money gone? The central government's taken it away from us. We don't have that money anymore. We can't build that park for the kids. We can't do those brilliant community groups anymore. We've got to stop that youth club. That would have been so powerful, and that would have led to a Labour government in 2015, in 2017, in 2019, because people would have known what absolute damage they'd done.
That was my second point. The fact that we need a Labour government to protect us against austerity because it's destroying us. Brilliant points. Laura, your husband has taken away all your time. So just very briefly, what would be your 2 key pledges be?
I mean, I can do it really quickly because I can't really add a great deal more. For me, listening to people more, whether that be surgeries or online or whatever, and trying to find out what the issues are from the people that you are there to represent would be a good start, as you say, at the beginning of a project rather than at the end. The other thing for me, working with Spanish, really initially started, we worked in community groups. And it was just really eye-opening for me because I'd never really been part of a community group. But when you see the work people put in, for various reasons, we had the Diverse Women's Network, we had a Trinity Tots, which looked after kids, we had a chanting group, and it was all these things that made their little communities better and things that were important to people where they lived. I think if councillors got in and mixed with community groups in their area to find out what they're doing in the area and worked alongside them, I think that would go a long way to sort of build relationships there as well and grow the community.
Thank you very much indeed. All about relationships, listening, and responsibility. Thank you so much, everybody, for those pledges. Absolutely brilliant. So that's the end of the show. If you weren't interested today, then my golly, what's the matter with you? You've got the wrong program. Thank you to the Supreme team. Now, always what happens is we're going to play the No Pass Around, and then we're going to come back. Sam's going to take over and take us through. We've got other streams where other people have been listening to, and they'll come in and we'll hear your comments and the wonderful things you've been saying about what the Supreme team has been saying. So if you got to go, goodbye. See you next week. Thank you so much for the honour, giving us the honour of listening to us. We're fine. Otherwise, see you back in about 5 minutes to just chill out in the chill room, and hear this lot be just a little less carded about the things that they're saying. Goodbye. Thank you very much. See you in 5 minutes, perhaps.